What if I told you that some of the most dangerous military operations in American history never officially happened? No records, no names, no funerals. The soldiers who carried them out were told one thing before they left. If you die out there, we never sent you. 3 operations. 3 missions so dark the US government spent decades trying to erase every trace of evidence. One ended in the worst military disaster nobody was ever supposed to know about. One happened 200 feet underwater in complete silence. And one is so recent that the people involved are still alive and still can't talk about it. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear has never been told like this before. 1968. Deep inside the jungles of Laos and Cambodia, a war that America publicly denied was even happening. MACV-SOG, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. The name was designed to sound boring on purpose. These weren't regular soldiers. They were 1, 2-man teams, dropped behind enemy lines with no air support, no backup, and no official existence. Their mission: locate and destroy the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the supply route North Vietnam used to move weapons, ammunition, and troops directly into South Vietnam. The problem: the trail wasn't just a path through the jungle. It was a 16,000-kilometer network of roads, tunnels, and underground supply depots. Some sections were wide enough for entire convoys of trucks to move through undetected, and the North Vietnamese knew every inch of it. Operation Tailwind, September 1970. A SOG team of 16 Green Berets and 130 Montagnard fighters were inserted deep into Laos with one objective: find a North Vietnamese headquarters and destroy it. What happened next was never supposed to leave that jungle. Within hours of insertion, the team made contact with an enemy force 10 times their size. Not scouts, not a patrol, a full North Vietnamese regiment. They were completely surrounded with no extraction possible for 72 hours. Captain Eugene McCarley made a decision that saved every man under his command. And that decision was so controversial that the US government classified every detail of it for the next 25 years. He called in air support carrying CS gas, a riot control agent, and something else. Something the official report described only as a special ordinance that allowed the team to break through the encirclement. Every single man made it out, but the after-action report was immediately classified. The pilots who flew the support missions were told never to discuss what they dropped. And the Montagnard fighters who witnessed everything were never debriefed by any official US agency. In 1998, CNN published a report claiming the special ordinance was nerve gas. The US military denied everything within 24 hours. The CNN journalists were forced to retract the story. But here's what nobody talks about. 3 of the Green Berets who were on that mission gave on-record interviews before the retraction was published. Their accounts were identical, their details were precise, and then they went completely silent. To this day, Operation Tailwind remains one of the most disputed classified operations in American military history, and the full report has never been released. 1971. 400 feet below the surface of the Sea of Okhotsk, one of the most hostile bodies of water on the planet, surrounded on 3 sides by Soviet territory. A US Navy submarine was sitting completely silent on the ocean floor, waiting. The crew had been briefed on the mission objective before leaving Pearl Harbor. Find the Soviet underwater communication cable that ran along the ocean floor between 2 of their most critical naval bases, and tap it. Not destroy it, tap it. Listen to everything the Soviets were saying without them ever knowing. The problem: the cable was sitting in water so deep and so cold that no standard diving equipment could reach it. The divers would need to operate in complete darkness at temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. The NSA had developed a special tapping device, a cylinder roughly the size of a large suitcase. It would wrap around the cable without cutting it, recording every transmission, every conversation, every military communication passing through that line. For 3 years, USS Halibut returned to the same location every few months, recovering the recorded tapes and replacing them with fresh ones. The intelligence gathered was described by NSA analysts as the most valuable raw signals intelligence ever collected during the Cold War. They were listening to Soviet naval commanders, discussing weapon systems, troop movements, nuclear submarine patrol routes, in real time. But here's what turned this operation from extraordinary to catastrophic. Ronald Pelton, a former NSA analyst who had been passed over for promotion and was drowning in personal debt. In 1980, he walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. and sold them everything. The location of the tap, the method used, the submarines involved. Soviet divers reached the cable within weeks. They removed the tapping device so carefully that American analysts didn't realize the operation had been compromised for months. When they finally understood what had happened, the damage assessment took 2 years to complete. But here's the part that will mess with your head. When Pelton was finally caught in 1985 and brought to trial, the US government faced an impossible decision. Prosecuting him meant revealing in open court that the operation had existed. That American submarines had been operating illegally in Soviet territorial waters for nearly a decade. They prosecuted him anyway, but the judge was given a classified brief before the trial. Large sections of the testimony were delivered in sealed sessions. And the full extent of what Pelton sold was never entered into the public record. He served 5 years, was released in 2015. The complete intelligence assessment of what the Soviets learned from Operation Ivy Bells remains classified to this day. 2011, Eastern Afghanistan. A mission so delicate that the unit carrying it out wasn't officially listed on any military organizational chart. JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, the organization above SEAL Team 6, above Delta Force, the unit that reports directly to the president and no one else. Their target that night, a network of bomb makers responsible for a new generation of improvised explosive devices, IEDs, that had killed more American soldiers in the previous 6 months than any other weapon in the war in Afghanistan. But the intelligence wasn't limited to the bomb makers. Within the intelligence package about the target was something that made the team leader stop reading it. A note indicating that 3 of the individuals at the target site weren't Afghan citizens. They were from a country with which the United States wasn't officially at war. The mission proceeded. The post-operation report described it as a successful direct action raid that resulted in the neutralization of a high-value network. What it didn't describe, the nationalities of those neutralized, the intelligence recovered from the site, or why the entire operation was immediately classified with a restricted access level to which only 17 people in the US government are authorized. 17. In a government of 330 million people. Here's what we know. Between 2010 and 2020, the Joint Security Operations Command, JSOC, conducted more than 10,000 direct action missions. The vast majority were never publicly acknowledged. A significant number involved individuals from countries with which the United States was not officially at war. And the legal framework that allowed those missions to take place, the authorization for use of military force, passed 3 days after the 11th of September 2001. It has never been repealed. And it has never been updated. And it has been used to justify military operations in at least 14 countries where most Americans are unaware that their armed forces operate. Right now, tonight, there are US Special Forces conducting missions in countries whose names will never appear in any newspaper, targeting individuals whose deaths will never be announced, using powers granted in another century for a different threat. The question no one in Washington wants to answer is this. At what point does a classified operation cease to be a national security necessity and become something else entirely? 3 operations, 3 different decades, 3 different methods. One thing in common. You were never supposed to know about any of them.